Snobby elites laugh at a simple old lady. Her billionaire grandson teaches them a lesson. The old Chevy pulled into the circular driveway of the Westbrook Country Club. Sticking out among gleaming luxury vehicles, Agnes Miller sat in the passenger seat, smoothing her simple blue dress. At 78, she rarely ventured into this part of Boston, where houses resembled castles and people spoke with affected accents. "Grandma, we're here," Michael said. He looked different tonight in his tailored suit, far from the boy who spent summers at her Nebraska farm. "I don't belong here, Mikey," she whispered. "These people aren't my kind." Michael squeezed her hand. "You belong anywhere I am. Trust me. I have my reasons for tonight." Inside, the ballroom sparkled with chandeliers and marble floors. Women in designer gowns clustered together, their laughter tinkling like champagne glasses. Men in bespoke suits discussed portfolios with practiced nonchalance. Agnes felt every eye turned toward them. She heard whisper, saw raised eyebrows, noticed barely concealed smirks. Her worn shoes clicked too loudly, her handbag decades out of style. "Michael, darling." A woman with impossibly high cheekbones approached. "We thought you wouldn't make it." Her gaze flicked over Agnes dismissively. "And you've brought company." "Victoria." Michael nodded coolly. "This is my grandmother, Agnes Miller." Victoria's smile tightened. "How quaint. I don't believe we've seen you before, Mrs. Miller." "Miss Miller," Agnes corrected gently. "Never married. Raised Michael myself after his parents passed." Victoria's eyes widened. "Alone? Without help?" She said it like discussing a disease. Before Agnes could respond, a booming voice cut through. "Is that Agnes Miller?" A portly man pushed through the crowd. "By God, it is!" Agnes squinted. "Walter Kingston! Heavens, I haven't seen you since high school." Walter hugged her. "This woman taught me everything about determination. Toughest basketball coach Riverdale High ever had." Victoria's eyebrows nearly disappeared into her hairline. "Coach? 30 years." Agnes nodded. "Boys, varsity. State champions 7 times." Walter laughed. "She'd run us till we dropped." Said character wasn't built in comfort. The circle around them grew, faces showing confusion and reluctant interest. "What brings you here tonight?" asked a silver-haired woman with pearls. Before Agnes could answer, Victoria laughed. "Oh, Michael just wanted to show his grandmother how the other half lives. A little cultural education, right?" The room filled with poorly concealed snickers. Agnes felt her cheeks burn. Michael stepped forward, and the room went silent. "Actually," he said, "I brought my grandmother because this is her night. I wanted her here for my announcement." Agnes looked confused. "What announcement?" "For those who haven't connected the dots, my full name is Michael Miller. Not Michael Thornton, the name I've used in business for a decade." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Recognition flickered across faces, followed by shock. "Yes, I'm that Michael Miller, founder of Quantum Tech. 15 years ago, my grandmother sold her farm to pay for my college. Everything I have, I owe to her sacrifice." The ballroom went completely still. Even servers paused, trays suspended mid-air. "So you'll understand why I found it necessary to witness how you would treat her when you thought she was nobody." Victoria's face went from porcelain perfection to ashen horror. Boston's elite shifted uncomfortably, realizing they'd been snickering at a billionaire's grandmother. "Michael," Agnes whispered, tugging his sleeve, "what are you doing?" He patted her hand. "Something I should have done long ago." Walter broke the silence with a booming laugh. "Well, little Mikey Miller, I should have known." Victoria sidled closer. "Quantum Tech. How fascinating. You must speak at our next symposium." "I'm on the board." "I'm aware," Michael replied coolly. "Your board rejected my scholarship proposal last year. Too pedestrian for your tastes." Victoria blanched again. Agnes felt pride mixed with concern. She'd never seen this side of her grandson, sharp, almost ruthless. Michael took 2 champagne glasses, handing one to Agnes. "A toast," he announced, "to my grandmother, who taught me that character isn't measured by bank accounts, but by how you treat people when there's nothing to gain." The crowd raised their glasses mechanically. "I'd like to share a story," Michael continued. "When I was 12, Grandma caught me making fun of a boy who wore the same clothes every day. Instead of grounding me, she made me volunteer at a homeless shelter every weekend. I'd see people for who they are, not what they have," she told me. Agnes remembered that boy, Tommy Reynolds. His father had lost his job. She'd quietly arranged grocery deliveries to their home, too. That lesson shaped my business philosophy. At Quantum Tech, we hire for character first, and our latest project builds on that principle. He nodded, and screens lit up with the Agnes Miller Foundation, building character through opportunity. Agnes gasped. "Michael, a $50 million initiative focused on rural communities like where I grew up, providing technology education, business incubation, and mentorship to people who would never be invited to galas like this." The ballroom erupted in applause, the kind that starts because people know they should clap. Agnes could see calculations happening behind every smile. The transparency of their sudden interest made her sad. "The foundation will be headquartered in Riverdale, Nebraska, where my grandmother taught for 3 decades, and Walter Kingston has agreed to serve as our first executive director." Walter stepped forward, beaming. "When Michael called with this idea, I couldn't say yes fast enough." Victoria pushed forward. "The Westbrook Foundation would be honored to partner with you. Perhaps a joint fundraiser next quarter." Agnes watched her grandson's face. He'd developed an impressive poker face, but she could still read the subtle tells. "I appreciate the offer," he said smoothly, "but we've already selected our partners, organizations with proven track records of serving communities rather than social calendars." Victoria's smile froze. Someone choked on their champagne. As the crowd grew, each person jockeying for Michael's attention, Agnes slipped away to the terrace. Outside, the Boston skyline twinkled beneath a clear April sky. "Running away from your party?" Michael asked, joining her with 2 plates of food. Agnes accepted a plate. "You've put me in quite a spot, Mikey, naming a foundation after me without warning." Michael looked abashed. "I wanted it to be a surprise." "It was that." She fixed him with her coaching look. "But I'm concerned about this game you're playing. This isn't like you." Michael's expression hardened. "Isn't it? You taught me to stand up for what's right. I also taught you about forgiveness. These people aren't all bad, just privileged, like you are now." Michael looked out over the city. "You didn't hear what they said about you before you arrived. You didn't see how they've been treating people like us for years." Agnes placed her hand over his. "Maybe not. But revenge dressed up as justice isn't your style." Michael's expression softened. The breeze ruffled his hair, making him look more like the farm boy she remembered. "I just wanted them to see you the way I do," he said. "To understand what real dignity looks like." Agnes chuckled. "And parading me around like a moral test accomplishes that? I raised you better than to use people as props, even me." Michael winced. His plan suddenly seemed less righteous and more petty. "You're right," he admitted. "I got carried away, but the foundation is real. I believe you, but if you're putting my name on something, it better reflect my values, not just your revenge fantasy." Michael nodded. "What would you have me do differently?" "Start by seeing them as people, not caricature. You've become what you claim to despise, judging folks based on a single interaction." Michael straightened his shoulders. "You're suggesting I give them a second chance." "I'm suggesting you give yourself one," she corrected. "The boy I raised wouldn't orchestrate all this just to make people feel small." "Let's go back in," Agnes said. "At this time, introduce me properly. Not as your moral litmus test, but as your grandmother who'd like to meet your colleagues." Michael offered his arm with a chastened smile. "Yes, coach." As they re-entered, Michael cleared his throat. "I owe you all an apology." A murmur of surprise rippled through the gathering. "My announcement about the Agnes Miller Foundation is genuine, but I came here with less than genuine intentions. I wanted to prove a point about judgment and character, but in doing so, I demonstrated a lack of both." Victoria's eyebrows rose in surprise. "My grandmother just reminded me that everyone deserves the chance to show who they truly are. I denied you that by coming with preconceptions. For that, I apologize." The silence that followed was different. Less shocked, more thoughtful. Walter broke the tension with his laugh. "There she goes again. Agnes Miller, still teaching life lessons." A genuine chuckle spread through the crowd. Victoria stepped forward. "Your grandmother sounds remarkable. Perhaps we could all benefit from her wisdom." "You have no idea," Michael said, a genuine smile replacing his calculated one. As the evening progressed, Agnes observed a shift in atmosphere. The awkwardness gave way to something more authentic. People who had barely acknowledged her were now introducing themselves properly. As they prepared to leave, Victoria approached. "Miss Miller," she said, pressing a business card into Agnes's hand. "My private number is on the back. When you're next in Boston, I'd be honored if you'd join me for tea. I have a nephew who could use your coaching philosophy." Agnes accepted with a nod. I'd like that, Victoria." As they drove away, Michael glanced at his grandmother with appreciation. "For someone who claimed not to belong there, you made quite an impression." Agnes gazed at the skyline. "I may not belong in their world, but that doesn't mean I can't visit, especially if it means keeping you grounded." 6 months later, fall came to Nebraska with crisp mornings and golden cornfields. Agnes stood on her new porch, smaller than her old farmhouse but modern, courtesy of Michael's insistence when she agreed to split time between Nebraska and Boston. The Agnes Miller Foundation was taking shape in surprising ways. The former high school gymnasium had been transformed into headquarters, with Walter Kingston overseeing operation. Agnes watched cars arrive for today's milestone event. Michael's SUV pulled up first. He bounded up the steps with youthful energy. "Big day, Grandma," he said, kissing her cheek. At the transformed gymnasium, state-of-the-art screens displayed interactive educational content. The wooden floor remained a reminder of the space's history. "Miss Miller!" Former students surrounded her with warm hugs. "You remember Tommy Reynolds?" Michael murmured. Agnes turned to see a tall man approaching. The skinny boy who wore the same clothes daily was now the county superintendent. "Tommy," she said, embracing him. "Or should I say, Superintendent Reynolds?" He grinned. "Still Tommy to you, coach?" The gymnasium filled with people, educators, farmers, small business owners. Agnes spotted Victoria Harrington talking with a local teacher, her designer outfit somehow less out of place. Walter Kingston's voice boomed through speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the official launch of the Agnes Miller Rural Education Initiative." The crowd settled. Michael guided Agnes to the front row, where Harold Westbrook himself waited. "Miss Miller," he greeted her. "Quite a turnout." "Riverdale shows up when it matters," she replied. Walter introduced key partners and explained the mission, bringing technology education, entrepreneurship training, and mentorship to rural communities. None of this would be possible without the vision of Michael Miller and the dedication of Agnes Miller. The applause was thunderous as Agnes took the stage. Looking at the sea of faces, former students beside tech executives, farmers alongside foundation directors, she felt worlds colliding positively. "I'm not one for long speeches," she began, "but today marks something important. It bridges divides that have held us back." She gestured to the crowd. "Rural and urban, traditional and innovative. The challenges facing our communities won't be solved by keeping these worlds separate, but by bringing them together." Agnes spotted Victoria, nodding in agreement. "The foundation isn't about charity," Agnes continued, It's about opportunity, about giving young people tools to build futures here, while connecting to the wider world. It's about remembering that character and community are assets as valuable as capital. The first group of student participants filed onto the stage, 20 teenagers selected for the pilot mentorship program. Each would be paired with both a local mentor and an industry professional. Michael joined Agnes for the Amvertine First Connections, where students met their mentor pairs. Agnes watched with pride as her grandson put each nervous teenager at ease. During lunch, Agnes found herself with Harold Westbrook, Victoria, Tommy, and several teachers. "You've created something extraordinary here," Harold commented. "Not just the program, but this coming together." "I just planted the seed," Agnes demurred. Victoria shook her head. "Don't diminish your role. We've all learned from your approach. Some of us needed those lessons more than others." Tommy laughed. "Coach Miller has been teaching tough lessons for decades. Ask about the time she made me write a 5-page essay after I wanted to quit the team." "Did it work?" Victoria asked. "Never missed another practice," Tommy confirmed. "I use the same technique with my students now." Later, Agnes stepped outside for quiet. She walked to a bench beneath an oak tree, where she used to gather her thoughts during halftime. Michael found her there minutes later. They sat in comfortable silence, watching leaves drift down. "I came to Boston with something to prove," he said finally. "I wanted to show those snobby elites that the farm boy could beat them. And somewhere, I started becoming what I claimed to despise." Agnes patted his hand. "But you caught yourself in time." "Because of you," Michael said. "You've always been my moral compass, even when I wasn't listening." "And now?" she asked. "Now I'm listening," he said simply. "And so are they." He nodded toward the gymnasium, where unlikely partnerships were reshaping both rural Nebraska and Boston boardrooms. Agnes followed his gaze, noting the unlikely tableau through the windows. Victoria Harrington, in her designer suit, deep in animated conversation with a weather-worn farmer whose calloused hands gestured enthusiastic. Harold Westbrook, seated with a group of high school students, leaning forward with genuine interest as they demonstrated their technology project. Worlds colliding, but not crashing, merging, finding unexpected harmony. "You know," Agnes said, her voice softening with memory, "the day I signed the papers to sell the farm, I was terrified. That land had been in my family for 3 generations. Your great-grandfather cleared those fields with nothing but determination and a pair of mules." Michael nodded, a shadow of guilt crossing his face. "I never fully understood what that sacrifice meant until years later." "I don't think I did either." "Not really," Agnes admitted, watching a maple leaf spiral down from the oak tree above them. "I just knew you had something special in you, a mind that needed more room to grow than Riverdale could give. But I worried that sending you away meant losing you to that other world." Michael took her hand, his expensive watch catching the autumn sunlight. "Did you lose me?" Agnes studied his face, the confident set of his jaw so different from the uncertain boy who'd left on that Greyhound bus with a second-hand suitcase and a scholarship that covered only half his expenses. Yet she could still see traces of that boy in his eyes when he looked at her. "For a while, maybe," she said honestly. "When you started calling yourself Thornton, when your visits got shorter and further between, I wondered if the farm boy was disappearing beneath the Boston businessman. I thought I needed to become someone else to succeed there," Michael confessed. "To hide where I came from." Agnes smiled, feeling a sense of completion. The circle that began when she sold her farm to send Michael to college had expanded to include both the world she'd always known and the one she'd never expected to enter. And somehow, against the odds, her grandson had found his way back to himself. "The irony," she chuckled, "is that what makes you exceptional in their world are the very things you learned in this one. The work ethic, the honesty, the ability to see value in people that others overlook." "I have something for you," Michael said suddenly, Reaching into his jacket pocket, he pulled out a small wooden box, weathered with age. "I've been waiting for the right moment." Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, lay a small brass key. Agnes looked at him quizzically. "It's the original key to the farmhouse," Michael explained, his voice thick with emotion. "I bought it back, Grandma. All 60 acres. The foundation will use most of the land for agricultural education programs, but the house, that's yours again, if you want it." Tears welled in Agnes's eyes, unexpected and uncharacteristic. She closed her fingers around the key, feeling its familiar edges press into her palm. "Ready to go back in?" Michael asked gently, offering his arm. Agnes nodded, rising with energy. "There's still work to be done." As they walked back, teenagers emerged carrying technology boxes to a mobile education van. They paused as Agnes and Michael approached. "Miss Miller," one girl said shyly, "thank you for this program. My mom was your student and said you changed her life. I think you might be changing mine too." Agnes felt her eyes grow misty. "It's not me changing your life. It's you taking the opportunity to change it yourself. That's the real lesson." The girl nodded, then broke into a smile before rejoining her friends. Michael squeezed his grandmother's hand. The legacy continues. Together, they walked back into the gymnasium where past and future, rural and urban, simplicity and sophistication had found common ground. Not through grand gesture, but through the simple power of seeing people for who they truly were. And Agnes knew that all her years of coaching had led to this. Not a foundation bearing her name, but a bridge between worlds that had been separate for too long. A bridge built on respect, opportunity, and the understanding that true character reveals itself in the everyday choice to see the best in others.